Alrighty folks, Warzone has had some seriously overpowered guns dominate the meta throughout its history, and as we near the end of the Verdansk era of Warzone, I thought we should take a look back on some of the most overpowered guns to ever grace the game, the kind of guns which made a 0.5 KD player feel like an absolute god at the game, and make the player who is killed by them want to punch a hole clean through their monitor. We're going to take a look at these in chronological order, not in order of power, and to kick us off, the first truly overpowered gun in Warzone was the Akimbo Snake Shot 357 revolver. I know just the phrase snake shot will send shivers down every Warzone veteran's spine, but it's true, these bad boys were absolutely running the show in the first month of Warzone, and it's no wonder. With one pull of the triggers you could instantly delete an enemy, and even if you didn't connect with the first volley, the fire rate was very forgiving and you should have that enemy dead before they can even truly react. These little bastards had the entire concept of close quarters combat destroyed. There was no point rushing an enemy if you didn't have these in your arsenal, as they were incredibly frustrating and predictable to die to. They were thankfully nerfed into oblivion. But it wasn't long before another pistol stepped up to the plate, and that was the Renetti burst pistol, Akimbo once again. Not going to spend too much time on this since it was quite similar to the snake shots in the sense that it's just a pure spammy close range gun that made pushing into buildings an absolute nightmare, or a dream if you happen to have them. They were also nerfed into obscurity. Next we have the Grau, which I think took the mantle of the first ever proper sweat gun of choice. This thing was absolutely dominating the meta for a long time too, because it could do everything. Close range, long range, I'm sure it could go to the fridge and grab you a beer too. It was so versatile, and it's easy to forget now, but the Grau was an absolute laser beam. They did nerf it and give it some pretty extreme vertical recoil, but there was a time when this thing did not move, and if you were going up against any semi-decent player with this gun, then I mean, good luck to you. I remember caving in and buying the purple tracer pack for the Grau, and my KD absolutely skyrocketing as I beamed everyone I laid eyes on with it. Truly a beast of a gun that was nerfed quite hard, but still very usable these days. Once the Grau took a fat nerf, there was a vacuum in the meta for a while, which was eventually hoovered up by the Bruen LMG, which when I ask people for their favourite ever gun or favourite meta in Warzone, the Bruen pops up a lot, even though it was absolutely terrifying to come up against. Also, it took a while for the Bruen to become meta because it's an incredibly slow LMG with its default build. In fact, you could even make it the slowest or heaviest gun in the game at that point. I know, because I made that exact setup, but it wasn't until people discovered how incredibly good the mobility was on it with the 60 round mag equipped that it became the dominant gun for a time. I mean, it already had non-existent recoil, stupidly high damage output, but when that was combined with movement speed of an assault rifle, then we had a serious problem on our hands. I used to say I was Bruning the game for everyone I killed with it. It was an incredibly fun gun to use, but it had to be put in its place, and it was. Nerfs across the board, recoil, damage, mobility, all put it in its place. Like the Grau though, a good player can still do damage with it these days. For this next one, I'm not going to let you see it, just hear it first.
Yeah, a fire shotgun as well.
The sound of that gives you anxiety like the score from a horror movie. The R90 shotgun, aka the Doof Doof, was one of the most frustrating, overpowered guns to ever grace the game, primarily because with its dangerous Dragon's Breath fire damage ammunition, you can kill someone who's round a corner or out of your sight, even kill them from beyond the grave. It's that kind of thing that makes you want to Doof Doof your head into your desk. I always find these overpowered metas interesting because they were always lurking in the game. Like the Doof Doof wasn't exactly a new gun, but all it takes is for one curious player to experiment with a setup, and before you know it, an absolute hellish meta is born. It was an understatement to claim the DMR was overpowered because it was literally like wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. The pre-patch DMR is definitely the most overpowered gun we've ever seen in Warzone, and furthermore, easily the worst time to be playing the game. Honestly, it was so bad. You could be shot 3 times at basically any range and you're dead. Twice even if they land a headshot, and because those with a good trigger finger could spam it, you could use it like an SMG if you wanted. I've never seen one gun with such a massive impact on the game. The pace, the flow of the game came to an absolute standstill because everyone was scared to move. Even driving a vehicle was dangerous, you could not escape it. It didn't matter if it was a sweat lord or an absolute bot using it. The DMR made everyone play like Scump on Championship Sunday. I'm getting frustrated just typing out the script right now thinking about about it. Just look at the graph that shows the meta coefficient in Warzone. The higher the line goes, the more players are picking just one gun, and that highest point there in the middle is the DMR meta. 82% of all players were running it at one point, and you know the gun is overpowered when it has to be nerfed 3 times just to get it in line, and thankfully those days are behind us. I just want to say to those who are not subscribed and enjoy Warzone, please hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. We have a good laugh here on this channel and I'd love to have you involved. Let's not forget the DMR's best friend secondary at the time though, the FFAR, whose reign of meta lasted for what seemed like an eternity. There's not too much to say other than it was simply too good. It killed way too fast up close, better than any SMG, to the extent that people would use this as their secondary to another assault rifle. Double assault rifle meta was a horrible time due to the FFAR's dominance. It killed too fast up close, had too much range, had too little recoil, and for some reason it kept on avoiding nerfs, like we were just casually living with this raging fire in the corner of the room. Thankfully it did catch a few nerfs and it's in a good place these days. For a while the meta had a real soft spot for tactical rifles. After the DMR was finally slain, it wasn't long before the M16 and the AUG replaced it at the top spot. Raven just couldn't quite get to grips with taming these overpowered beasts. It was not quite as bad as the DMR days, but it seems when tactical rifles are too crazy, then everyone gets scared to move out in the open because they can be picked off so easily. Why risk it? In the end, the game just becomes who can camp the power positions the hardest with their burst guns. Once Raven did address the M16 and AUG though, that was a turning point, and there was, I'd say there's only really been 2 briefly overpowered guns since that I can think of. We all knew the Sykov pistols were going to be an issue since they could be akimbo and have 80 rounds to play with. Akimbo pistols in general are a problem, but being able to spray 160 rounds with a really generous hipfire spread, you could easily get a squad wipe in a house with about 40 rounds to spare with these. Thankfully it didn't take Raven too long to tone the damage down and give them the slow mobility they deserve. And the last truly ridiculously overpowered gun we've seen is the MG82, which only lasted a couple days as meta thanks to Raven being more proactive with their patches. I feel like if the MG82 had been allowed to dominate the game for as long as the DMR had, the state of the game could have ended up even worse because, I mean, we all know how devastatingly powerful this laser beam was against players, but this time the overpowered gun could chew up vehicles too. That would have been absolutely horrendous if given the time, but the MG is now usable, but not God gun usable. Folks, please leave a like on the video and let me know your most overpowered gun in Warzone, and also if you'd like to hear me talk about more overpowered guns in COD history, click the video up on your screen right now.